Lastly, things we can add into a system. If you don't have some of those fancy app-based controls in your system, you can add hot water reset controls and staging controls, both for steam and for hot water systems. A steam boiler it has a little pressure troll on top that you use a screw to adjust to 14.6 psi because it's really that accurate according to the sticker. What about something that said, well, geez, it's 30 degrees outside. I don't need 14 psi of steam. Let's only do 10. There's controls that'll do that. And if you want to interact with the building automation, we could sequence boilers. There's a lot of off-the-shelf controls that can make an old school system not perfect, but definitely better. It'll time sequence the run times to match the systems. So some other things that you can add in the systems, and I bring this up, is that some people are obsessed. If you really, really, really want to get good at condensing boilers, what you actually maintain is a tight O2 in the combustion chamber. So you maintain really good tight O2. Well, things that can influence that are air quality, gas quality, and stuff like that. So something new that we're starting to do is see O2 monitoring on the boiler so that I can say, yes, this boiler is operating at peak efficiency for a particular system. So we can put O2 monitoring on our boilers nowadays and tied into BACnet. You can read that over through a system. Now, it's basically a monitoring point, but it's something to go. It doesn't necessarily make the boiler efficiency any better because, well, the boiler's good at doing it or not doing it good at it. What the O2 monitoring gives you is just some visual verification that the system is actually working right. Some other things that we can add on to a system. Variable speed pumps. Who's ever seen one of my variable speed pumping seminars? Yeah. Half the people raise their hand, the other half are eating pizza. So, or drinking, or don't care. So there's all sorts of tools and operations available to put on variable speed pumps. We've been putting variable speed drives on pumps since I've been in the field. So actually probably before that. So there are drive pump packages available. We can usually, and some drives, we can actually bolt them to the back of a TEFC motor and it uses the fan of the existing motor. Or we can go with the state-old ABB separate drive. Truth be told, our preference is for the separate drive because putting something that's electric that vibrates and is wet is setting yourself up. So if you have the space, let's hang the drive on the wall. And that goes a long way for the system operation. But we do have packaged drive and pump systems. So old school way of doing it, and still the best way to do it, is to put a differential pressure sensor out in the system. Done plenty of retrofits where we put DP sensors out there, figured out through a little bit of testing what the DP sensor should read to, and then we maintain that set point at that point. So if there's a system that we can't put a DP sensor out in there, we'll go to some sort of control curve where we'll do some math back at the drive where we know the speed and the power of the drive, and we can make a control curve prediction so that it's not as good, it's not as granular or fine a control, but it's a way better than running that pump full speed all the time. So we can say at this flow rate, I'm going to maintain this feet ahead. So it's a fine adaptation system. I'll hit your question at the end if that's okay. So basically, DP sensor is still the Cadillac of the system. Control curve, way better than a constant speed pump as far as system goes. All of that is built into these little bad boys here, these little high-end pumps, ECM-driven pumps, permanent magnet pumps, where we have a drive, pump, motor, all packaged into one particular system. Very, very efficient, very, very capable system. It's a little bit like whoever had an original cell phone, little brick cell phone that you had, 3 presets on? It was great compared to the one that was screwed into the wall, right? But nowadays you wouldn't have that. You have an iPhone. This is basically an iPhone. It can do a lot of control logic. It's a very elegant design. We can replace the drive if we want to. It's entirely a packaged system. That drive is programmed for that motor and impeller combination right there. So it's very capable. So it has built into it to do all of these fancy control schemes that we want. And luckily, we tried to, whenever possible, make sure that the dimensions fit into at least flange to flange to an existing pump system. So I can't say it's going to work 100%, but Most of the time that I've done it, it's either the same or smaller. So it's easier to make up that gap if it's a little bit smaller. Very good flow characteristics, very large flow, now through free phase. So we can throw these into an existing system, say an apartment building, and we have all these little zone valves in the system. This pump will speed up and slow down because of all the zone valves. And it's built into the pump, so it's a way to enhance the operation of the system. All the control curves that we want to get into, all the different control modes we can go. Just got to turn it on. It's an operation thing. One of the things it'll do is they're so smart, will talk to multiple pumps. So it'll stage on, stage off. If one pump fails, it'll bring the other one on. We can do temperature regulation. All sorts of wild things that we could use to get ourselves in trouble. I'm sorry, come up with a creative solution to meet the owner's goals. We never do things to get ourselves in trouble. So, lastly, a couple of things that we've done, retrofits we've done to systems is boiler economizers. Here we're trying to capture the lost stack heat in the system. We could use that heat to either preheat water going into the boiler or dump into another load altogether. You could actually take a old-fashioned 80% steam boiler at 80% efficiency and jack it up to the condensing efficiencies through one of these. But one of my favorite energy scrounging ideas is a lot of systems that we do are tied into steam. So we use steam to get heat to the building, and we use hydronics inside of the building. So in this case, we're using a condensate cooler to extract a few more BTUs out of that steam before we send it back to the system. So we can condense the steam, and then we suck a few more BTUs out of that pound of steam. So, this gets into, I'm paying for that pound of steam. I'm going to squeeze every single BTU I can out of that pound of steam before I send it back to the utility. Something like this is very easy to put into a system. We could either take the heat and preheat it like this, or maybe dump the heat somewhere else, depending upon whatever you want.